Welcome to Breaking Through Health Barriers. This is your host, Dr. Terry Wenner, bringing you education, motivation, and inspiration for healthy living. I'm a doctor of education, a registered nurse, a health podcaster, blogger, and video creator, and I'm so glad you decided to listen in today. This is episode 10, and in today's three-part episode, we will be discussing how hobbies play a part in your health, the health benefits of behaving like an adult, and vegetables. In the first part of our episode, we bring you our very first guest here on Breaking Through Health Barriers. It will be an interview with my husband, Russ Wenner. Russ is going to be speaking about the importance of having hobbies and enjoying life in order to be healthy. The full transcript of this interview will not be available directly on my website, but you can access it by going to YouTube and searching out this podcast. So without further ado, let's listen in to the interview. Today we're welcoming our very first guest to the Breaking Through Health Barriers podcast. It's Russ Wenner. Russ is my husband, the former host of the Techie Geek podcast, and he's currently working in the IT field. Today, I invited Russ to join our show so that he can talk a little bit about his personal experience with the importance of hobbies and enjoying life as a part of healthy living. Now, Russ has never spoken publicly on this topic before, and I guess I just want to introduce why I chose him for this topic. You know, there's plenty of things that we can learn from books and research and different very high-tech type of things, but we can also learn a lot from just the personal experiences that we have in our life. And knowing Russ for over 25 years now, I've really got to experience how important enjoying life is to him. I tend to be a little bit more of a workaholic type and don't take the time to rest and relax and enjoy life. But through all the stages of our life, I really have seen and admired Russ's ability to enjoy himself and to do things that he feels are fun. Some are more work-oriented and some are more personal-oriented, but I really just wanted to compliment him on those abilities and hear what he has to say on this topic. So before we get into any real questions, Russ, did you have anything else you wanted to add to the introduction a little bit about yourself?
No, not really.
Okay. Well, then why don't we get started with just an opening statement about what is it that you have done over the course of your life that you consider a hobby or something that was just for fun?
Well, I've always enjoyed the outdoors. That's been something that I've enjoyed since I was a child. In the early 80s, I got interested in computing as a hobby. My dad purchased an Apple IIe computer, which I took to. I learned to program in BASIC, and I really tinkered around with that for 10 years. And in 1993, I got my own personal computer, and that's where my enjoying of computing really took off. Since that time, I also got interested in ham radio. I have a technician's license. I'm currently studying for my general license. And my outdoor hobbies have included hiking, biking, some shooting sports, things like that, such as archery. I also took up photography. I enjoy doing that from time to time. Yeah, so those are probably my primary hobbies.
That's a nice variety of things, from the technical computer end of things to spending time in the outdoors. Have you found that over the course of your life, your interests have changed a lot, or do they tend to be more consistent?
My interests vary quite a bit. While I was doing the Techie Geek podcast from 2008 through 2012, I was at that time working in a job that caused me to really delve into different technologies across a wide spectrum. So in that job, I was responsible for the company's all computer-related things, including servers, desktops, laptops. I was responsible for the cell phone fleet, all of the laptops, the multifunction copiers, the security system in that company. by requirement of my job, I needed to learn about and study all facets of technology in the workplace. So from all that research that I did in those topics really gave me a lot of content for the podcast over those 4.5 years. Then when I switched jobs, I got into a very specific realm that wasn't something I could really talk about in the podcast. It was document management systems, but, a very narrow field. So I found that the content for my podcast really dried up at that point. As far as hobbies, I think around that time is when I first got interested in photography. I've always been interested in the outdoors, so particularly, I was about to say particularly when the weather's nice, but that's actually not, my outdoor pursuits are pretty much year-round. But I think you would agree that there are times that I seem to be more into one hobby than another. The ham radio thing is somewhat recent. I got first interested in 2014. I studied and got my technician's license. I actually did that with a friend of mine, and I backed off that hobby a little bit, but I've just recently got reinterested in it. So that's kind of where I am with my hobbies right now.
Okay. Now, since this podcast has to do with health, do you feel that placing a high priority on hobbies and enjoying life has benefited your health?
I would say my mental health, maybe a little bit my physical health. I mean, getting outside, getting some sunshine, certainly biking and hiking definitely does. I think mentally getting away from your day in, day out job not only gives you a much needed break from that, also gets you mentally ready to pick that back up again and approach it with, a fresh mind and attitude.
Okay, so some mental health advantages, depending on what your choice is. It could be physical health advantages as well. And I really liked how you pointed out that it allows you to refresh and then be fully charged to go back to your work. So I could see if an employer was listening into this podcast, they might be concerned that, their employee is engaging in activities that have nothing to do with their, advancing the company or doing a better job. But by resting and in doing things that are totally unrelated, you can really refresh yourself and recharge and then, be able to give your employer 100% again. I think that sometimes people struggle with trying to balance their time. So there's probably a lot of people that agree having hobbies and doing enjoyable things is a great idea, but how do you fit it in your life? Can you give our listeners any thoughts on how you manage to fit these things in and not have other parts of your life sacrificed too much?
Well, I think like anything, you have to plan for it and make it a priority. So a lot of my hobby activities I do early in the morning. So a lot of times before you're even up, I might be out for a hike or a bike ride or doing photography. If the weather's bad and I'm working on some technology thing, I might be in my office researching or learning some new technology thing. It's a balance, and you have to, like anything else, schedule it. If you don't plan to do it and make time to do it, then it won't happen. It'll get crowded out by the other cares of life.
Okay. What would you say to people who just feel like there's just no way to fit it in? They're too busy with all the other things that they have to do, take children to activities and participate maybe in their church or their community. Do you feel this is important enough that they really need to not only want to do it, but, really schedule it in like you said? Or is it sort of an individual thing? Some people need it and some people don't.
Well, I think most people find time to do what's really important with their life, what they find really important. Now, when our kids were small, I didn't participate in a lot of these hobbies. So, we were busy with raising our kids, but that was fun time too. Now, I wouldn't say raising kids was a hobby, but it was fun. And, we all find the time to do what's important in our life. As you mentioned, we serve in our church. I wouldn't consider serving in my church a hobby, but it is something that is set apart from my day in, day out routine. It is another break from that routine that does, recharge me so I can face the next work day, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember when our kids were small, I worked a lot of weekend shifts at a local hospital. And, Russ basically had, full responsibility of 2 young kids and our home. And they always would tell me, the kids would always tell me about the fun things they did with Dad. It almost, in a sense, they looked forward to those weekends. I know you had a friend that would often come over and visit while I was at work, and you'd order pizza and have a fun time with that. I also know that you used to take the kids out sometimes to your outdoor setting that you talked about liking. I think you probably hit every playground in the, local vicinity. And, they knew which playgrounds had the best types of things to do on them, which ones had, rubber tire ground floor for safety and things like that. And they just always really enjoyed the time. So that was a good thing. So for the sake of our listeners, they probably think that you have all the fun and I don't. I enjoy different things. So for me, I enjoy things that are fun but also have other productivity type of benefits. So for example, working out at the gym for me is a really fun time. I think I had mentioned it maybe on one of my blog posts that we recently just got cycle shoes to ride indoor cycle bikes. Well, I know that we both participate in different indoor cycling classes, and, our instructors try to liven it up. They play music, so sometimes that to me is a really enjoyable thing. Working out, sweating really hard, knowing I'm burning calories, but also jamming to the tunes at the same time. So I think it's somewhat unique, but like you said, if people don't find it valuable, they're not going to make the time for it. Personally, I've had a very busy life for the past 5 to 10 years with going back to school for higher degrees. And now that those degrees are over, I'm really enjoying doing things online. So although Russ doesn't podcast anymore, I've picked that up. And his knowledge and expertise has really been beneficial to me. Even tonight, we had a little tech issue with our recording, and Russ was right there. Not only did he troubleshoot it, but he also, allowed me to observe and learn how that happened. And so I learned something in the process. So I think that's really great. What happens, what's that old saying, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, or something like that. If you're all about work all the time, what have you enjoyed in life? Some people do enjoy work more than others, but even if you enjoy work, it's still work. It's something that people are requiring you to do on a certain time schedule, and to be, productive with your time and account for all your time. And it's not the same as just hanging out with family and friends and doing fun stuff. This past summer, we got to take an awesome vacation to Punta Cana. And, we did nothing but lay around the beach and the pool, and, we did fun things. So we had a good time, and that's an important part of that recharging experience. Well, Russ, that's all the official questions that I have for you. Is there anything else that you wanted to share about this topic of having hobbies and enjoying life as part of a healthy life?
Not really, just to say that I agree that it's very important for living a well-rounded, enjoyable life. It's very important for your mental health. So get out there and enjoy life.
Okay. Is there any place online that you would refer people if they wanted to learn more about you or more about any types of hobbies or anything like that?
The archives of my previous podcast are out on archive.org. I'll give you the link to put in your show notes.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Thanks for having me on.
Russ, we just really want to thank you for, being our guest today and being willing to do our first interview. I also thank you for your technical experience. And, we're just really appreciative that you took the time to do this for us. So thank you. And certainly, if you have any colleagues or friends that would like to be a guest on the show to talk about something related to health, we would love to have them. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much, Russ. Now we're going to be returning to the regularly scheduled broadcast, and we have our second part, Dr. Terry's Health Tip and Challenge of the Week. So, as you have heard before, I'm sure, there are many sources that tell us we should be eating more vegetables. Most of us need to be eating more vegetables. And, in case you didn't realize this, several show listeners and myself are currently participating in the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Super Tracker My Plate Challenge for the first 5 weeks of the year 2017. This government resource states that daily vegetable consumption really varies a little bit, and it's based on things like your age, your sex, and your activity level. So when I set up my profile, my recommendation, according to a chart that the Super Tracker My Plate Challenge provides, I should be eating between 2 and 2.5 cups of vegetables per day. The problem is I rarely manage to meet this recommendation, and instead I end up eating too much of foods from other categories, most especially carbohydrates, and then I don't have any more room for the vegetables that I should be eating to provide me with healthy nutrition. So I encourage you to check out this website. The link will be provided in the show notes so that you can determine how much vegetables you should be eating every day. And then you can even join me in this week's challenge. And the challenge is, I want each of the people listening to find 3 new vegetable recipes that you think that you might like, that you're willing to give a try. So, there's tons and tons of resources online. You can go wherever you like. There are books, there are neighbors and friends, all kinds of places that you can find good vegetable recipes. And I do encourage you to try to pick healthy choices. Things where there's more butter in the recipe than vegetables, it's probably not the healthiest source of vegetables for you. And the same goes with additives such as cheese. A little bit of cheese is fine, but if your food is actually swimming in cheese, that's probably too much. So I want you just to find some new things. Part of the problem with vegetables is if you eat the same old for 30, 40, 50 years, it gets boring. It's not exciting. You don't care to have another spoonful of green beans or corn the way you've eaten it your whole life. So I think that this is going to be helpful for me, and I hope that it'll be helpful for you also. But we need to find some new things, some new recipes, some new ways of eating vegetables, so we actually want to do it. It's not like, open up, you got to eat that spinach. Instead, it's going to be like, wow, look what I did with spinach. It's going to be really cool. I mixed it with this and that and the other thing. So I'm excited. I actually have started a Pinterest board that is just for vegetable recipes. So if you haven't checked that out yet, I invite you to do that. Follow along. But I think that's going to be a key for me, is making it more exciting. I'm nearly 50 years old. I've been eating vegetables, many of them the same way, my whole life. And that's fine. I'm glad to have them, but I'm bored with them. I need to find some ways to spice up my vegetable life. So I hope you'll join me in that challenge. And then for our final segment of today's podcast, I want to talk about adult behavior. So I really struggled with whether or not this was appropriate to talk about, and I feel so compelled to do it that I think it's very important and worth it. So, probably anyone living in the United States has experienced similar things that I have, but over the past couple weeks, I have witnessed an overwhelming amount of poor behavior here in the United States. And honestly, I'm embarrassed at the negative things that people are saying about other human beings, and it's all revolving around political choices. So I know that I'm not the only one frustrated by this. It seems as though most people are either participating in this atrocious behavior or they are frustrated by it and wish it would stop. And I read a Facebook post that was by one of my friends. She goes by Melissa. I'm not going to reveal her last name in this podcast, but you may know her, maybe you don't. But regardless, I want you to hear what she has to say. And this captures the frustration so well. It says here, "I can't wait for the day I can stop hearing about this election. I've moved on with my life. It is just that simple, people. There are times in life that we are not going to like, love, or want the outcome we get. It's called life. Time to show the next generation and your children how adults handle real life. If not, you have failed as role models and parents." And she writes, "Rant over." So thank you, Melissa, for kind of summarizing what so many of us are thinking. But I do want to kind of explore what she had to say a little bit, dig a little deeper into it. So you may have heard this before. It may be something new to you, but it's the principle of sowing and reaping. It applies in both the earthly sense where, you're planting seeds into the ground, and it's also a biblical principle. And basically what it means is that you will reap what you sow. So I ask you, what are we sowing? Are we sowing seeds of hatred, seeds of distrust, seeds of anger, seeds of verbal spewing of garbage? Well, if we are, then what do you think we're going to reap? We're going to reap those same things. Hatred, anger, distrust, and garbage. Do any of us need more garbage in our life? I don't think so. I don't know about you, but I don't need any more of these things. What I want and need more of is love, trust, a caring attitude, cooperation, teamwork. I want other people to be praying for me to be successful in life. I don't need any more of this garbage that's going around online. So, not to mention, some of the things being said clearly imply that American citizens really didn't want to vote in the first place. One of the rights that we have is the right to vote. And if you chose not to, that was still your right to choose not to. So I am not trying to knock people who chose not to vote. What I am trying to say is that is one of the rights that we have, that we love, that we cherish as American citizens. And for you to think that it's okay for you to say to other people, they didn't really have that right. They needed to do what you said. Otherwise, they were worthless. That is just garbage. So that's really has me fired up today. They didn't want me to vote. They didn't want certain people to vote. They just wanted blind obedience. Well, I sure as heck don't want blind obedience. I want thinking, intelligent people to do their very best to vote for whomever they feel is the best candidate. And, so the two people that were up for election this year, the people will change. Another 4 years, another 8 years, another 12 years. The people will change, and you may change sides. But the reality is you don't have the right to tell people that they do it your way or it's unacceptable. My son is in the armed services, and I believe in what he's doing. I believe that we need to defend the rights that we have currently and not have them taken away. And the right to vote is a privilege, people. So, of course, there's going to be times when we disagree. There will be times when you lose, no matter what side you're on. That's part of freedom. We are free to vote our conscience. We're free to make personal choices. But what we're not free to do is to run other people's lives and get mad when they don't do what we want. So as Melissa said, that's the end of my rant. But really, going forward, what are we supposed to do? Well, this is my suggestion. It's time to let the past go on this issue and focus on the future. It's totally okay if we disagree on some things. In fact, often I have found that the sharing of differences creates incredible solutions that we otherwise would not have even discovered. But as Melissa said also, think about the example that you're setting. What kind of behavior are you demonstrating and teaching the young people of our generation? What are your children and your grandchildren and other youth that are listening to what you have to say or hearing or reading what you're saying? You are given an opportunity here to set a good example, and instead we have some people that, like I said, I'm very embarrassed at the behavior that they are engaging in, because it is certainly not showing what a mature adult would be doing. So I thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed our guest interview today. And, if you're someone who would like to be involved in a guest interview in the future, I ask you, please, drop me a note on my website or email me directly. I would love to have more variety in what we are sharing that has to do with health. I think that we have a lot to learn from each other, as I said. And even if you totally disagree with me, that's okay. I still care what you have to say, and I believe you have the right to say it. So thank you for tuning in. Just wrapping things up here. As you know, I always ask for an honest review on iTunes or Stitcher Radio. If you use those services, this is one of the best ways that we can get the word out about what we're doing. And I also invite you, if you haven't done so before, stop by my website and sign up for just regular email updates. And what I have created recently is I have managed to pull all my 2016 blogs together in one PDF document. And as you sign up, you get a free gift of the compilation of the 2016 blog posts, as well as my health checkup tool that I've been offering since this past fall. And if you are involved in other social media channels, feel free to follow me on those channels. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Google+. And certainly my latest adventure has been YouTube health-focused videos called Health Mentoring Moments. So whatever floats your boat, that's totally fine if you'd like to follow me in any of those channels. So I do hope that you will take the time to leave a comment on my website about anything that we talked about today or any time in the future. And, I just thank you for tuning in. So this is Dr. Terry Wenner, and together we're going to break through as many health barriers as possible and live happier, healthier lives. Until next time, enjoy each and every day you're given.